Welcome back, my sweet angels. It's time for another GOPO. Last time we're moving on to Unit 2 today, which is the political institutions. So we're going to talk about the four branches, okay? The three for sure: Congress, presidency, and Supreme Court. So the legislative, executive, judicial. But the fourth branch of government, which is the bureaucracy, will be Chapter 7. So we're going to start with Chapter 4 today. We're going to go over Section 1. So I'm basically going to describe the difference between the House and the Senate and what they do. So Article 1 describes, in the Constitution, describes the legislative branch. We call it Congress. Other places call it different names. The UK calls the Parliament. In Iran, they call theirs the Majlis. They call it the National People's Congress. In China, everybody names it differently. We call ours Congress. This was created as a compromise in the Constitutional Convention, which we learned about in Chapter 2. There's two houses. The lower house is the House of Representatives, and they are based on population, the representation, and the upper house is the Senate, and they are two per state. So here are the requirements that you have to be: the age requirements, the number of years you have to be a citizen in the United States. So that means you don't necessarily have to be born there, and you have to be the resident of a state. If you notice, you have to be older and live and be a citizen longer to be a senator because it's seen as more prestigious. They can run as many times as they want. The House runs every 2 years, the Senate every 6. But they do a continuous body. So not all 100 senators run every 6 years. A third of them run every 2 years. Their constituencies. The constituency is the people they represent. In the House, they have a district they represent. The Senate, they represent the entire state. The House is definitely more organized, more formally structured, more governed because it's so big. They need to be. It's a lot. Whenever you have big groups, you need to have more structure and more formalities to it, where the Senate can be a little bit more willy-nilly. That's a technical term, of course. So the goal of the House, when this was first formed, the House was the only thing that was directly elected by the people. The Senate was chosen by state legislatures. So the House's goal is to definitely be more representative of the people. That's why they're the representatives. Where the Senate was meant to be more insulated from the voters' preferences, and they are meant to make decisions for a state as a whole and the country as a whole, where the representatives are more for the people. So they do call this the People's House or the People's Branch, the House of Representatives, because, like I said, it was the only one when the Constitution originally came out where we directly elected a group. Sorry for the bell. There we go. Every 2 years they're elected, so they're held super accountable by the people because they could lose their job every 2 years. They definitely include the people more as in the Senate, as they do in the Senate. But like I said, they're definitely more strictly structured. For instance, like they can only talk for 5 minutes at a time. That's their debate time. And then they have to give it up to the next person, where the senators can talk to as long as they want. Now, the Senate is definitely the more stable branch. They're insulated from the people. They're meant to be protected from the voters. And they really were at the beginning when they weren't even elected. But now that they're elected, the way that they're still kind of insulated from the voters is that they get to serve 6-year terms. They're not as accountable as the representatives are. And they were known as like the Billionaires Club for a while. They still kind of are because senators tend to have lots and lots of money. But once they stopped getting picked by the state legislatures, they started getting picked by we the people, because the 17th Amendment gave us the right to directly elect the senators. So just to give you an idea of how it used to be, when we first started, we had 65 representatives, but now in 2017, we have 435. Obviously, our country has gotten bigger. We only had 13 states when this country was formed, so that's why there's only 26 senators, and now we have 100. And what do we see typically? For the most part, the idea was that when you are a member of the House or the Senate, you do it for like a little bit of your time. It's almost like your civic duty. They saw it like at the beginning of our country, kind of like seeing it as jury duty. It's just something you need to do to serve the country and get out. But now people make careers out of it. And you definitely see more and more people become what are known as career politicians, which means they start and they make that their entire career. They don't get out because there's no term limits. But look at teachers. There's lots more of them than there used to be. Giving me some ideas. All right, so there's three powers that you have. Just remember elbow. Remember elbow when you're thinking of the powers of Congress. They make laws, so lawmaking, L. B, they create the budget, and O, oversight. So they're the ones that make the laws for the national government. And they're the ones that set the budget. So they decide how much is taxed and how much they spend, not only just on us, but on programs and agencies. But some things, they do a couple of things that are considered kind of controversial, but it's the name of the game. They do what's known as pork barrel spending, which we kind of talked about with fiscal federalism in Chapter 3, where they'll spend national tax money on local and state pet projects. And, the state and local areas, like if they were going to try to use federal funds to fix Millington Bridge, that's pork barrel spending because it's federal tax dollars used for a local project. And the people around here are like, great, we don't have to pay for it with our taxes. We're not getting our taxes raised. But, we're using money from people in Wyoming and California and Oregon and New Hampshire, their tax money to pay for something in Millington. So that's where it can be seen as controversial. And a lot of times the voting on the budgeting and the lawmaking is dealt through what's known as log rolling or reciprocity. Just think of that idea of you scratch your back, I scratch mine. Wait, I said that backwards. That was silly. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. That's what log rolling reciprocity is, where members of Congress will trade votes so that you'll vote for their pet project. So our representative for Millington is Adam Kinzinger. He is the representative in District 16. And basically what he would do if he was in a situation like this with Lauren Underwood, who's the representative for anyone who lives in Sandwich, he might say to her, hey, I know that you're trying to get money for the schools in Naperville. If you approve my Millington Bridge proposal, I'll approve your Naperville funding. That's what log rolling is. That's what reciprocity is. It's very common. It's done everywhere, and it's done in Congress. So they might not actually agree with what they're supporting, but they're doing it to get the votes. So elbow, lawmaking, budgeting, oversight. So once they make a law, it's their baby. I made this beautiful child of my law and I'm so proud of it. And I'm just going to send it off into the world like Moses in a basket. But they don't leave it to be, just go die. They want to know how it's doing. So they oversee the bureaucracy and the groups that are supposed to implement these laws. That's the executive branch, and make sure they're doing it the right way. And make sure that they create everything. The law, when they make the laws, they're also the creators. They're creating agencies too. So when they created the FBI, that's who created the FBI, Congress, they need to oversee and make sure that the FBI is doing their job. If I am a congresswoman and I create this project where the Navy, the Defense Department, is getting the Space Force, I need to make sure and bring in the Department of Defense and make sure they're actually doing what's supposed to be done, what the law tells them to do. So elbow, that's the three jobs of Congress. Remember that. And they can be involved in any type of stuff. These are just their powers that is listed in the Constitution. It's stuff that they can both do, and it's stuff that they specifically do. So make sure you study this. For instance, only House can, when it comes to economic policy, only the House can, what's the word I'm looking for? Propose revenue bills, where the Senate cannot. They can't originate there. In foreign policy, only the Senate can confirm ambassadors. So you need to understand what they each can do specifically and what they can't. You'll want to study this for sure. And this is in your book anyway. So what type of powers do they have? And they can exercise checks and balances over the other branches. When it comes to war making, Congress declares war, and that's one way they have a power over the president, because the president's commander in chief, but they officially are the ones that declare war. Now, can the president send troops places? Yeah, absolutely. You know when the last declared war we had was? World War II. And you're like, wait a second. I know, I remember from APUSH in U.S. history, there were other wars besides World War II up until now. Yeah, you're right. But they're not like real war. They're not declared wars by Congress. It was just president sending troops. The Senate, they have to ratify treaties. So anytime we make a treaty with another country, like the Treaty of Paris that we've made 300 times in our history, Senate had to approve it. Now, once we do that, the president has power. So the president does have the power of commander in chief. Okay. So once they declare war, he can use that power. But a lot of times he has to wait to use his commander in chief power until Congress declares war. Same with negotiating treaties. He can make all the treaties he wants, but he has to have Congress approve it, the Senate specifically, in order for it to be considered to go into effect. Judicial authority. Congress, remember, when I say they're the makers, they don't just make laws. That's their number one job of ELBO, lawmaking. But they also, one of the laws they can do is creating new agencies and creating new courts. And so out of the three courts at the national level, you've got district, appellate, and supreme. Out of the two lower levels, district and appellate, they can create as many courts as they want or get rid of them. They get to set that, and they get to set the number of justices. And then the Senate has to approve presidential appointments for any judge at the national level as well. And it's not just judges that they have to be approving of, the Senate, but they also approve ambassadors, bureaucratic heads, head of the FBI, and then cabinet secretaries, anybody with the secretary of whatever, or the attorney general. The Senate has to approve it. Also, another way that they check both the executive and the judicial branches is through impeachment. So impeachment is just charging somebody with a crime, okay? And it can be the executive, it can be the president, or it can be any member of the judicial branch. So it's a two-step process. First, the House must impeach, which is just bringing charges against, let's say, the president. We're going to use that as an example. They just need a over 50% vote. Once that happens, the president actually, or whoever's being impeached, will go on trial in the Senate. So the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court will be in charge. The senators will be asking the questions, and then the senators have to have a 2/3 vote to actually remove that person from office. We have had 3 presidents be impeached, but none have ever been removed. See if you can figure out those 3. Let me know by shooting me a message, and the winner will get fabulous prizes. All right. So overall, we have a bicameral legislature. They have their own powers, and they also have powers over other branches of government. Next, we're going to move into congressional elections and how those work. So we'll do that next time I see you. Have a good one.